Have you ever stopped to wonder how the simple act of seeing yourself, truly seeing yourself, could completely transform the course of your life? Imagine waking up each morning not burdened by the old stories you've been told, but instead inspired by the possibility of everything you could become. Because the way you see yourself isn't just some fleeting thought. It's the silent architect behind every choice you make, every risk you dare to take, every dream you allow yourself to chase. The lens through which you view yourself is more powerful than any external obstacle you could ever face. It quietly shapes your confidence, determines your courage, and sets the limits or the boundless horizons of your potential. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you step out into the world wearing a pair of invisible glasses that tell you who you are. And here's the hard truth: that lens can either set you free to rise to your highest self or imprison you in invisible chains of doubt and fear. Can you recall the first time you were told you weren't enough? Maybe it was someone saying you weren't smart, talented, or strong enough. Those words can stick like shadows, whispering lies long after the moment has passed. Over time, we unknowingly let those shadows darken our view of ourselves. We start to believe that our worth is tied to those opinions, that our abilities are permanently limited by someone else's careless words. And with each repetition of that story in our minds, the illusion grows stronger until it feels like unchangeable truth. From our earliest days, we build our self-image from what we hear and see around us. Parents, teachers, friends, even strangers. Those moments, big or small, begin to form a mirror of who we think we are. But what if that mirror has always been cracked, reflecting not your true self, but someone else's fears, biases, or insecurities? Think about it. What if the negative beliefs you carry were never really yours in the first place? The good news is that you have a choice, one that starts right now. You can decide to challenge those old stories, to break the cycle of self-doubt, and to reclaim the truth of who you really are. Because the way you see yourself is the foundation for everything else: your relationships, your success, your willingness to go beyond your comfort zone, and your capacity to experience joy. Picture this. If you see yourself as weak, you'll shrink from challenges and avoid the risks that could bring you growth. If you see yourself as unworthy, you'll settle for relationships that don't honor your value, jobs that don't use your talents, and dreams that feel forever out of reach. If you see yourself as a perpetual failure, you'll stay stuck in the same safe, stagnant place, never daring to explore what might be possible if you stepped forward with faith. But what if I told you those limiting beliefs aren't facts? They're just thoughts, stories you've told yourself so many times they've started to feel real. Yet if you can repeat one version of yourself, you can absolutely create a new one. Remember those moments when you surprised even yourself. Maybe you accomplished something others said you couldn't, or you found strength you didn't know you had. Those flashes of triumph reveal the real you, the you beyond fear, doubt, or past mistakes. In those moments, you saw yourself clearly, if only for an instant. That version of you has always existed quietly, waiting for you to notice. But so often, we spend our days fixating on what we lack: our flaws, past failures, or the times we fell short. We replay our mistakes over and over like a broken record, drowning out the quiet voice reminding us of our strength, resilience, and untested potential. You weren't born to live a small, limited life. You were created with a purpose that goes far beyond merely surviving each day. You were meant to grow, to thrive, to reach for dreams bigger than you thought possible. You were made to love deeply, to contribute meaningfully, and to step into challenges with courage. That is the truth of who you are, and the sooner you begin to see yourself through that truth, the sooner your entire world will begin to shift. It all begins with a decision to stop measuring yourself against old labels that were never meant for you to rewrite the stories you tell yourself every single day, to let go of the toxic thoughts that keep you playing small. Because if you keep whispering to yourself that you're not good enough, you'll never take the leap toward the person you're destined to become. If you stay fixated on your weaknesses, you'll be blind to your strengths. And if you keep telling yourself you're stuck, you'll miss the doors opening right in front of you. So, let me ask you this. What would happen if you changed the way you see yourself today? Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. What if you decided to see yourself as brave, capable, worthy of every opportunity life brings your way? What if you looked in the mirror and chose to believe in your potential, to trust in your resilience, and to embrace the parts of yourself you've been told to hide? Because the moment you decide to see yourself differently, everything changes. New possibilities appear. Confidence starts to grow. You begin to show up in ways that surprise even you. The conversations you have, the risks you're willing to take, the relationships you attract, all of it starts to shift in alignment with the new story you're telling yourself. See yourself as strong, and you'll find strength in every struggle. See yourself as capable, and you'll discover solutions in every challenge. See yourself as worthy, and you'll stop settling for less than what you deserve. When you truly see yourself as the powerful, unique, irreplaceable person you are, you'll realize that your past cannot define you. Your mistakes cannot stop you, and your fears cannot control you unless you let them. This is your invitation to step into the truth of who you are, to look beyond the stories you've inherited, beyond the limitations you've accepted, beyond the doubts you've repeated, to see the extraordinary potential that has always been inside you, waiting to be unleashed. So I challenge you, make the choice today to see yourself not as a collection of past failures, but as someone with limitless potential. Choose to see yourself as someone who deserves love, success, happiness, and peace. Choose to see yourself as someone with everything you need to create a life beyond your wildest dreams. Because when you change the way you see yourself, you don't just change your life, you change your entire future. Have you ever noticed how certain beliefs about yourself seem to cling to you like a second skin, so familiar, so deeply woven into your identity, that you don't even pause to question them? I'm not smart enough. I'll never succeed. That kind of life isn't for someone like me. These thoughts echo quietly, playing like a broken record in the back of your mind, guiding your choices, clouding your confidence, and quietly building the walls of your comfort zone. But what if those beliefs, the ones you've accepted as unchangeable truths, were never true at all? Take a moment right now and ask yourself, where did those beliefs come from? Who planted those seeds of doubt in your mind? Who decided you weren't good enough or strong enough? And most importantly, what if they were completely wrong about you? The reality is, limiting beliefs don't just appear out of thin air. They sprout from words spoken over us, moments of rejection, painful failures, or even well-meaning advice that kept us small. Maybe it was the teacher who dismissed your question in class, making you feel foolish. Or the parent who criticized you harshly when you tried and failed, leaving you believing mistakes were unacceptable. Or perhaps it was the time you put your heart into something, fell short, and convinced yourself you'd never measure up again. These moments may seem insignificant in isolation, but over time, they accumulate layer upon layer until you're living in a prison built from stories that don't serve you. What's so insidious about these limiting beliefs is how stealthily they work. They don't announce themselves. They creep into your daily life like a fog. Without realizing it, they shape your ambitions, influence your relationships, and even dictate what kind of love, respect, and opportunities you think you deserve. They become the silent puppeteers of your choices, guiding you away from risks, stifling your potential, and keeping you trapped in patterns you think are just the way things are. Consider this. If deep down you believe you're not worthy of success, you'll sabotage yourself without even knowing why. You'll procrastinate on your goals, settle for less than you want, or shy away from opportunities that could change everything. If you believe you're unlovable, you might stay in relationships that diminish you or avoid intimacy, altogether convinced no one could truly care for you. If you believe you're incapable, you'll never try, and so the possibility of growth will die quietly, before it ever had a chance to blossom. And the scariest part: most people never stop to question any of it. They simply accept these old stories as fact, living their entire lives inside cages built from someone else's doubts or the echoes of a single painful moment. They assume those beliefs are part of who they are, when in truth, they're only echoes of the past, not prophecies for the future. But what if you dared to question the stories that have defined you for so long? What if you asked yourself, "Says who?" when your mind whispers, "You can't do this"? What if you paused and wondered, who decided that every time you feel like you're not good enough? Imagine how different your life could look if just for a moment you allowed yourself to believe something new, something empowering, something that reflects the person you truly are rather than the person you were told to be. Because here's what's true: you are not your past. You are not your failures. You are not the labels others have stuck to you, whether they meant to hurt you or thought they were protecting you. You are something far greater, with a mind capable of growth, a heart capable of courage, and a spirit capable of rewriting your entire story. But before you can change the story, you have to recognize the old script. Awareness is the key that unlocks the door to transformation. When you catch yourself thinking, "I could never do that," stop and ask yourself, who told you that? Who decided what you're capable of? What evidence do you really have that it's true? And what if, instead of defaulting to doubt, you gave yourself permission to believe in something bigger? What if you replaced "I'm not good enough" with "I am capable and I can grow every day"? What if, instead of saying "I always fail," you said "Every challenge teaches me and makes me stronger"? What if, instead of resigning yourself to "I'll never be successful," you declared "I am building success one step at a time"? Of course, at first, these new beliefs might feel awkward, even fake, like trying on clothes that don't quite fit. That's normal. Your mind has been running the old program for years. It won't switch overnight. But each time you challenge those limiting thoughts, each time you refuse to accept a story that keeps you small, the old beliefs lose their grip. Slowly but surely, the lens through which you see yourself begins to shift. And when that happens, everything starts to change. You start noticing opportunities you once thought were beyond you. You start taking risks, not because you know you'll succeed, but because you believe you can learn and adapt. You stop settling for relationships, jobs, and dreams that don't light you up. You start moving through life with a quiet confidence, an unshakable sense that you are capable of more than you've ever been told. Because the truth is, your beliefs are not set in stone. They're stories. Stories you can edit, rewrite, and transform as you grow. Like a computer running outdated software, you can update your mind with new empowering beliefs that open doors you didn't even know existed. So today, I invite you to start rewriting your story. Question every limiting belief that tries to tell you who you're not. Replace them with words that remind you who you are and who you're becoming. Tell yourself, "I am resilient. I am worthy. I am powerful." Repeat them until they feel like second nature. Act on them until they become the foundation of a new reality. Because the only thing standing between the life you have and the life you dream of is the story you're telling yourself, and you have the power to change it. When you do, you'll discover that you are stronger, braver, and more extraordinary than you ever imagined. And that's not just a possibility, that's the truth, waiting for you to claim it. Life has a curious way of putting us to the test, doesn't it? It hurls obstacles in our path, knocks us off our feet, and sometimes whispers doubts into our ears, making us wonder if we truly have what it takes to keep moving forward. In those raw, difficult moments, the way we choose to see ourselves becomes the dividing line between giving up and growing stronger. Some people stare at failure and think, "This proves I'm not good enough." Others look at the same setback and say, "This is just another step in my journey." What sets those two mindsets apart isn't raw intelligence, natural talent, or even luck. It's the way they see themselves and their belief in their capacity to grow beyond who they are today. Far too many people believe their abilities are fixed in stone, that they'll always be stuck at their current level, and that struggling means they're simply not cut out for success. They convince themselves that if they're not instantly skilled, they'll never master what they desire. But that's one of the most dangerous lies you can ever believe. Real growth has nothing to do with where you begin. It's all about what you're willing to do to get better every single day. Every remarkable skill you've ever admired, every inspiring success story you've heard, started with someone who stumbled, doubted themselves, and yet chose to keep going instead of staying stuck. Think of a baby taking their first steps. They wobble, lose their balance, and tumble again and again. But they don't decide walking isn't for them. They don't think maybe crawling forever is safer. They haven't learned to fear failure yet. They just keep pulling themselves up until one magical day they take their first step and then another. That's the essence of growth, falling, learning, and trying again. The only true difference between people who ultimately succeed and those who give up is simple. The successful ones refuse to stay down when they fall. They don't allow failure to stamp a permanent label on them. They use it as a powerful teacher. Because here's the truth. Most of us forget. Failure is not your enemy, it's your most honest mentor. Every mistake contains a lesson. Every stumble holds a clue for how to do better next time. But if you see failure as proof that you're simply not good enough, you'll avoid challenges, retreat into your comfort zone, and become paralyzed by fear of making mistakes. And in doing so, you're not keeping yourself safe. You're trapping yourself in a small world, robbing yourself of every chance to stretch, evolve, and step into the person you were born to become. Think about the legends of history who failed far more than they ever succeeded. Thomas Edison famously tried thousands of times before the light bulb finally lit up the world. Michael Jordan, the basketball icon, was once cut from his high school team. Walt Disney, the dreamer behind countless beloved stories, was told he lacked imagination. Imagine if they'd believed those early failures defined them. Imagine if they'd given up before their breakthrough. The world as we know it would be completely different and far less bright. What they understood and what most people miss is this: failure isn't the opposite of success. It's an essential part of it. You don't have to be perfect to move forward. You don't need every answer today to start. You just have to be willing to learn to get up one more time, to look at each setback with curiosity, instead of self-condemnation. You have to see every mistake as a stepping stone, and every obstacle as a chance to gain strength you didn't have before. Because here's what's real and unchanging: you are capable of far more than you've ever allowed yourself to believe. Your potential isn't frozen in time. Your talents, intelligence, and resilience can all expand, but only if you're willing to embrace the process, to be patient with yourself, and to trust that growth always comes to those who persist. So don't fear failure. Don't shy away from discomfort. Don't hesitate to look foolish while you're learning. Because every master was once a beginner, standing where you are now, wondering if they had what it takes. The only way to become the person you dream of being is to keep moving forward again and again, no matter how many times life knocks you down. Because each time you rise, you get closer to the person you're meant to be. The way you speak to yourself shapes everything. Every thought you entertain, every word you whisper to your heart, every belief you silently repeat about who you are. These things build the person you wake up as each morning. And yet for so many of us, that inner voice isn't a cheerleader or a wise guide. It's a relentless critic, quick to point out every mistake, eager to magnify every flaw, and always ready to remind us of the ways we fall short. Let me ask you this. If someone else spoke to you the way you speak to yourself, would you keep them in your life? Would you stay close to someone who constantly tore you down, highlighted your worst moments, and convinced you over and over that you'd never be enough? No, you wouldn't tolerate it. You'd distance yourself, maybe even cut them out entirely. So why do we so easily accept that same cruelty from our own minds? The truth is, most people are far harsher with themselves than they would ever dream of being with a friend or even a stranger. We set standards so impossibly high that falling short is inevitable, and then we punish ourselves mercilessly when we fail to meet them. We replay our old mistakes like they're stuck on a loop, as if dragging ourselves through the mud will somehow make us stronger. We believe that if we're tough enough on ourselves, if we never let ourselves off the hook, we'll magically transform into the person we think we should be. But deep down, we know that's not how real growth works. And it's certainly not how confidence is built. Because here's the reality. Tearing yourself down doesn't make you better. It doesn't inspire you to rise. It makes you afraid to try, afraid to hope, afraid to take the next step, because you've already decided you're not good enough. And what you need in those moments isn't harsher judgment, it's compassion, it's kindness, it's understanding that you're a human being, not a machine. That you're allowed to stumble, to struggle, to fall short of your own expectations, because that's how you learn. That's how you grow. Self-compassion doesn't mean making excuses for yourself. It's not about ignoring your mistakes or pretending you don't have areas you need to improve. It means recognizing that mistakes are a natural part of the journey. It means understanding that just because you fail at something, it doesn't make you a failure as a person. Struggling doesn't mean you're weak or broken. It means you're pushing your limits, testing your abilities, daring to step into something new. Think about how you would speak to a close friend who came to you defeated and frustrated. Would you look them in the eyes and say, "You're right, you'll never get it right, you'll never be good enough"? Of course not. You'd remind them of all the times they've overcome obstacles. You'd tell them that one mistake doesn't define who they are or what they're capable of. You would encourage them to try again, to believe in themselves, to keep moving forward. And yet, when we face our own moments of failure or insecurity, we do exactly the opposite. We expect perfection from ourselves at every turn, and when we inevitably fall short, we unleash a flood of self-criticism that would break anyone's spirit. But what if instead of tearing yourself apart, you made the radical choice to be on your own side? What if you decided to become your own ally, your own supporter, your own biggest believer? What if instead of focusing on every flaw, you celebrated every effort, every step forward, every small victory along the way? Because the truth is, no one has it all figured out. Even the people you admire most, those who seem confident, poised, successful, have moments of doubt, moments when they question their worth, moments when they wondered if they'd ever make it. The difference is, they didn't let those moments define them. They didn't cling to their mistakes as proof they should give up. They learned to move forward with grace, to see setbacks as part of the process, and to understand that failure says nothing about their worth as a person. And here's something you need to hear. You don't have to wait until you've reached some imagined level of success before you start treating yourself with compassion. You don't have to wait until you feel completely confident before you start speaking kindly to yourself. You can start right now, right here in this moment, by choosing to believe that you are enough, even as you learn, even as you grow, even as you navigate all the messy, beautiful parts of your journey. You can choose patience over punishment. You can choose to believe that each misstep is a lesson, not a verdict. You can choose to stop being your own harshest critic and start being your most loyal supporter. Because when you do, everything begins to change. The relationship you have with yourself is the foundation upon which every other part of your life is built. When you build it with kindness and compassion, you create a life where you feel safe to take risks, to dream bigger, to become the person you've always wanted to be. So the next time you catch that critical voice telling you that you're not good enough, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, what would I say to a friend I love who's feeling this way? Then offer those same words to yourself, because you deserve it, because you were never lacking, you were never too broken to grow. You just needed to see yourself with the same gentle eyes you offer to others. The people you surround yourself with matter more than you might ever imagine. The voices you choose to let in, the conversations you engage in, the energy of the spaces you spend your time in. All of these things work quietly yet powerfully to shape the way you see yourself. Whether you're aware of it or not, every single interaction is either lifting you higher or dragging you lower. Every person in your circle is either fueling your confidence and growth, or they're feeding your insecurities and doubts. And here's the thing: most people overlook. If you're not careful, you can spend years, sometimes an entire lifetime, carrying around beliefs about yourself that were never yours in the first place. They were planted there by someone else's fears, someone else's limitations, someone else's opinion on what's possible. Think for a moment about the words that have stuck with you over the years. Maybe it was a passing comment from a teacher who doubted your abilities. Maybe it was a sarcastic remark from a friend that hit a sensitive spot. Or maybe it was a lifetime of subtle messages from people who, intentionally or not, made you feel like your dreams were unrealistic or your talents weren't enough. Those words can linger like shadows, whispering doubt into your mind every time you try to take a step forward. But let's pause and ask, who decided those words were true? Who gave them the power to define you? And why should you keep carrying someone else's fear or judgment as if it's your own? It's so easy to underestimate the quiet, constant power of influence. We like to think we're independent thinkers, making choices based solely on our own reasoning. But, in reality, our mindset is shaped every single day by the people we spend time with, the conversations we have, and the environments we immerse ourselves in. If you're surrounded by negativity, sooner or later, you'll start to see yourself through the same distorted lens. If the people closest to you don't believe in themselves, you'll start to lower your own expectations, pulling back your ambitions to match theirs. And if you keep absorbing voices that speak more about fear than possibility, you'll start to confuse their doubts with your own truth. But here's the good news, because, yes, there's hope. Influence works both ways. Just as negativity can stunt your growth, positive, uplifting, encouraging influences can propel you to new heights. You need people in your life who look at you and see your best qualities even when you can't see them yourself. You need people who challenge you, who push you, who refuse to let you settle for anything less than the greatness you're capable of. You need relationships that remind you that your dreams aren't too big. They're exactly the size they need to be. Imagine what happens when you start surrounding yourself with voices that inspire you instead of discourage you. When you're around people who talk about possibilities instead of problems, you start to believe that you can create something amazing. When you spend time with those who celebrate growth and effort instead of perfection, you start giving yourself permission to try to stumble and to get better. When your environment is filled with encouragement, your self-perception begins to shift. You stop seeing only what you lack and start seeing what you can become. But let's be clear, this doesn't mean you have to cut everyone out of your life who doubts you. It doesn't mean you need to build walls or isolate yourself. It means you must become intentional about who gets to occupy the most space in your mind and heart. You have to choose which voices you let in and which you let fade. You have to protect your mindset like it's the most precious resource you own, because it is. Every conversation you participate in, every comment you take to heart, every piece of advice you accept, these things all have the power to either reinforce your strength or deepen your doubt. Like water to a plant, the influences you absorb will determine whether you wither or thrive. Picture this: if you plant a seed full of potential in dry, lifeless soil, no amount of effort will make it bloom. But place that same seed in rich, nourishing earth, and it will grow beyond what anyone expected. You are no different. Your potential is like that seed, extraordinary, but it needs the right environment to unlock it. If you place yourself in spaces where fear and limitation are the norm, where people speak more about what can't be done than what can, your dreams will struggle to take root. But if you find an environment that breathes life into you, where encouragement, hope, and ambition are abundant, you'll start to rise to match that energy. So take a closer look at the voices you've been listening to. Are they lifting you up or weighing you down? Are they helping you see the incredible possibilities ahead? Or are they reinforcing doubts you don't need? And perhaps most importantly, are you willing to start choosing influences that align with the person you want to become? Because once you surround yourself with people who see your potential, once you give yourself permission to tune into voices that believe in you, you'll realize something profound. You were never lacking in ability, courage, or worth. You just needed the right environment to grow, and now you're ready to step into it. You've seen how the people and voices around you can shape your beliefs, but the most important voice of all is the one inside you and the choices you make starting now. Change doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't sneak up on you in the night or arrive unannounced one morning with a wave of newfound confidence sweeping away every doubt and fear you've carried. That's not how transformation works. Real, lasting change begins with a decision, a deliberate moment when you draw a line in the sand and tell yourself that you refuse to keep living under the same insecurities, the same old fears, the same self-imposed limits that have kept you small for far too long. Change begins when you choose action, even while your hands still tremble and your heart still questions. Because here's an uncomfortable truth: you will never feel completely ready. You will never wake up with every answer neatly in place, every skill perfectly honed, every shred of confidence coursing through your veins. And if you keep waiting until that mythical perfect moment, you'll spend your whole life waiting, and nothing will ever change. Too many people stay trapped in their own thoughts. They spend their days imagining what could be, picturing a braver, bolder version of themselves, but never daring to take the first real step. They let fear win the argument in their minds, convincing themselves they need more time, more preparation, more certainty. Meanwhile, time slips by, like sand through open fingers, and the life they dream of drifts further out of reach. Because the reality is simple: nothing changes until you decide to change it. You have to take action before you feel confident. You have to start walking before you see the entire path ahead. You must be willing to step into the unknown, even when it's dark and uncomfortable, trusting that you'll find your way as you go. Growth isn't meant to feel safe. Change isn't supposed to be easy. But do you know what's equally hard, if not harder? Staying exactly where you are day after day, when deep down you know you're capable of more. There will never be a perfect time to start. The fear you feel now won't magically evaporate. But here's the power you do have: you can choose which voice you give the microphone, your doubts, or your potential. You can decide whether you keep replaying the old stories that hold you back, or begin writing a new chapter, one bold choice at a time. The way you see yourself won't transform overnight, but every brave step you take chips away at the old beliefs. Every time you move through fear, every time you challenge a limiting thought, every time you remind yourself you're capable, even when your mind wants to argue otherwise, you're rewriting your story. You're proving to yourself that you are stronger, more capable, and more deserving than you once believed. But none of that happens without action. You can read every book on mindset, watch every inspirational video, listen to hours of motivating podcasts, but if you don't take the first step, nothing will change. The breakthroughs you crave don't come from more thinking or waiting. They come from doing, from moving, from putting yourself in the arena even if you fall, even if you fail, even if you have to try again tomorrow. Because it's in action, no matter how small, that confidence begins to grow. Action is the bridge between who you are today and the person you want to become. It's what turns a possibility into something real, something tangible. Every little step forward is a statement to yourself and the world that you are choosing to believe in your potential. So stop waiting for every piece to fall perfectly into place. Stop telling yourself you'll start when you feel braver or when the timing feels right. Decide today that you are going to change the way you see yourself, not by thinking about it endlessly or wishing it were different, but by stepping forward with courage. Because the life you want, the self-assurance you crave, the sense of purpose you've been longing for, they're waiting for you on the other side of action. And the only way to get there is to begin exactly as you are with what you have right now. Remember, everything in your life starts with how you see yourself. The beliefs you carry shape the choices you make. The words you speak to yourself color every decision. The way you handle failure determines whether you stagnate or grow. The people you let into your life influence what you believe is possible. And the actions you choose day after day are the building blocks of your reality. If you've been living under the weight of old doubts, if you've been letting fears set your limits, if you've been putting off the moment when you finally change, hear this clearly. You don't have to keep waiting. You have the power right now to rewrite your story. You are not trapped by your past mistakes, your past failures, or the opinions of anyone else. You are defined by the choices you make today, by the courage you show now. So choose to see yourself differently. Choose to believe in your potential, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Choose to step into the person you were always meant to become. Because when you change the way you see yourself, you don't just change your attitude, you change everything about your life. And the time to start, it's not tomorrow, it's not someday, it's now.